This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you by Liberté Ministries. Freedom. The word alone elicits strong feelings of pride and comfort. That's because it's more than a word. Freedom is something that everyone longs to have in many areas of life. At Liberté Ministries, it's at the focal point of all they do. The word liberté means freedom, and so they strive to help those in Haiti find freedom in education, in economic self-sufficiency, and most importantly, freedom in Christ. Liberté works with 23 congregations of the Lord's people in Haiti and operates 2 schools that have a combined attendance of 600 students. They also have the Haiti School of Biblical Studies, a 4-year college that not only provides crucial training for preachers, but also for teachers and other church leaders. In addition, there is Harry's Home, a children's home that sees to the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of many children. Go to TravisLovesHaiti.com for more information on how you can help spread the good news of Jesus in Haiti.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis, brought to you by lads2leaders.com. That is lads, the number 2, leaders.com. And we're coming to you from Marietta, Georgia at the Ministry League Experience. Will and Lonnie just got into town today. Ben and I were here for the Creators Conference last night. That would be the Thursday leading into Memorial Day. And some heavy hitters coming in and speaking, and we ain't even heard Lonnie Jones yet, so just batting down the hatches. Batting down the hatches.
Highlight of Dan Winkler yesterday. We had El Presidente with us today. Just
that would be David Shannon. For those of you not taking note.
And then Lonnie Jones tomorrow.
Yes, Lonnie Jones, Ben and Travis again.
Yes.
In a youth class. Will Monahan's going to be teaching a youth class. Lonnie's teaching like 20 courses tomorrow. It looks
2 classes and a keynote.
There you go. 2 classes, a keynote. And so we're going to do things a little differently than we usually do. We usually do just straight up Ask Lonnie Jones anything podcast. And this time we're going to kind of give him an opportunity to ask some questions of us if he wants to ask some. We can ask a question of everybody and kind of go down the way and you know, all answer the question.
So I'm going to step off camera and show everybody that I got my own personalized signed copy of the Travis and Whitney book. And so, Travis, what's your favorite chapter in the book?
Oh, favorite chapter in the book would have to be the one where I talk about my bowel movements, right? That's like the best chapter.
Have you seen them since they moved?
Who?
My bowels.
All right. So, no. Yeah, I think...
that is the best chapter. I was reading it. I was reading the book. Probably, I guess before everybody got it, you sent us a copy. And I texted you because Ben was saying something about it may have been during the foster adoption process, all of that, how he was crying. And I was a little bit ahead of him in the book, and I texted and I said, I'm at the bowel movement.
So I'm just gonna move Ben out of the way. I wore a colostomy bag for 21 weeks.
Yeah.
So Travis and I need to talk. We need to just share stories.
It's an incredible story. You will laugh at that chapter a lot.
There's some
not
good
too
stuff.
Much detail.
It's not too bad.
It's a great chapter. I've perused the book before I wrote my endorsement.
Yeah.
But this is my hard copy. I've got a PDF copy of it. But okay. So that's your favorite chapter.
All right. So what are y'all's favorite chapters?
Oh man, I don't know that I can remember.
Since we're plugging this thing, let's plug it hardcore.
I'm going to be in chapter. I'm in.
That was a good one. I liked some of I think, and I can't remember the name of the chapter or exactly where it's at, but Whitney has some really great, I almost call it commentary towards the end, just tying the thoughts in together. And she does that the whole time, but sort of some spiritual application, I think, that's pretty heavy on the back end of the book, and I thought it was really good. So. Not that your stuff's not good.
No, I got you.
But
no, trust me.
Whitney's got some great stuff.
She's how we finish this thing. If it was up to me, it'd still be out there somewhere trying to get written. But, okay, I got a question. So we got a couple of, we got Lonnie and we got Ben. And feel free to weigh in here, Will, and I'll try to do the same. But if you're going to, you've got this young guy it's his first year preaching. He's stepping into the pulpit. what's some advice you're going to give him?
Well, usually when I talk to young preachers, like I've done a couple of classes like that, and one of the first things that I try to tell people is just love people. Like if you'll love the people where you're at and treat them with respect and be a part of their life and involved in their lives, then they're going to love you. I feel like people get by, or, I don't mean that in a bad, like with bad things, but a lot of preachers sometimes cannot be the greatest preacher on the planet, but if they're great with people and that people know that they love them, they probably get some passes on that.
Covers a multitude of
It does. I mean, I just think connections with people is important.
Yeah. So, I'm going to make the distinction between preaching and ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a mediocre preacher and a good minister, and you're going to live in that community as long as you want to live in that community. Do you value me, or do you like me?
Mm-hmm.
Can I trust you? Will you help me? That's what Maxwell says is the key to being a person of influence in somebody's life. I think the Bible would call it attention, belonging, and support. The body has the same care one for another. And from just the preaching side, expository. Study a modern speech translation along with the translation you're preaching out of, and don't get caught up in the minutia of Greek word studies. Learn what the whole message says. And then I call it walking in the creek. Once you can walk from rock to rock to rock to rock, then you can dive in the holes later. But you got to know what the whole creek looks like before you can get in the bottom one of those deep holes.
Yeah. And I'm not saying this just because you're sitting here. You're one of the best that I've ever heard that does that. And that inspired me a lot, because used to I would preach a lot more, points or topical. When you first start out as a preacher, it's just, I guess you kind of find that easy to do. And it's like, if I can come up with those,
3 admonitions from Paul.
Yeah. And so,
admonition 1.
I went from that to, when I listened to you a lot more, I learned how to break down passages and really look at them for what's in them. And so pull out, I may still have 3 or 4 points, but I pull it out of the text rather than going from this text over here to another random text over here. So,
and then you don't have to worry about what am I preaching on. The text may discuss a dozen things. I'm doing an anxiety, stress, and suffering. And it's just Paul's introduction in 2 Corinthians. And he talks about we were burdened beyond what we were able to bear, and that we despaired of life. And then God comforted us so we can comfort other people. And the very last thing he says, and you were part of our comfort because you prayed for us. So about suffering, we talk about comfort, we talk about the resurrection of Christ, and then we talk about prayer.
All in one
setting. And then it's not just, we're preaching on prayer today. Yeah. And all my letters will begin with the letter P. I just...
Will, what you got?
No, I think it's loving people, and being available to them. I've said to a lot of guys in the youth ministry world, there are guys that can do so much better when it comes to classes, lessons, and things like that. But I do believe where I have found some success in youth ministry is just supporting people where they are. I mean, showing up to ball games, showing up to whatever they have going on, and goes back to what Lonnie and Ben said, just let them know that I care about you and I care about what you care about. Yeah. It's like when we were in Huntington, we had so many athletes, and it was awesome because I love sports. And then we moved to Muscle Shoals, and it's like, we got a lot of talented kids in the theater world. Yeah. And it's like, that's not necessarily my wheelhouse to go watch, a 3.5 hour play on The Sound of Music, but I'm going to be there, because that's important. That's important to them. So I'm going to make that important to me.
The junior high band contest.
That's right. Yeah. Girls middle school basketball. It lasts for 6 hours, but I'm going to go because I care about
trying to offend as many kids as we can. Right here.
Preaching is a necessary byproduct of ministry, but you move to that town to minister. Now, some of the larger congregations are now hiring an exclusive preaching minister, but for the most part, your first local work, you're the guy.
Yeah.
And so you're there to be a minister.
My first work preaching, I was the preacher, the youth minister, and the secretary, because there was no one else in the building
same.
but me.
Well, my first preaching work, I was a youth minister before that. But
I had done that too.
So I want to know everybody's greatest ministry fail. It could be funny. It could be probably lead more towards the funny, because I don't want to hear necessarily a serious fail. We had a good lunch with a lot of funny guys, and I'm on a funny kick. So, any funny fails that you got out there?
Probably mine was the trip that I lost the right to make the hotel reservations on. From that point on, I've not made a single hotel reservation for our youth group because we were on our way to Michigan, and we get up there or out on our way up there, we stop at this place that I had talked to them about. Okay, we've got this big of a group coming. What do you have available? And they're like, well, we've got this many room with double beds. I said, that'd be great. I'll call you back. I'm going to let you know what we got. So I call them back, a little later. I don't remember if it was that day or the next day. And I said, okay, I'm with that big group. We're coming. I need all those rooms that, we talked about. So they booked us. We've probably got 30 people. And we walk in and they give us our room keys and we go to the room and we open it up and there's one bed per room. And we have it set for 4 people in each room. And so when we go in, they're like, we're sorry, we don't have any other rooms. So they couldn't swap us to rooms. So we had, 2 to 3 kids sleeping in king size beds and then some kids sleeping on the floor, including me. I slept on the floor
I've slept
with
on the
Jackson.
floor.
I just said,
I slept on the floor as the keynote speaker at CYC.
Yeah.
In order to chaperone kids in a room.
Yeah. So that's what we did. And of course, lots of kids called moms. And one of the moms that stayed back at home had also been on my first retreat that I went to Fall Creek Falls. And it was in the cabins that had no heating and air, the chicken mesh around the outside of it. And so they had been on that and she had slept in the car with her daughter. So their family calls and she said, you know what? I'll get y'all hotels on the way home. She booked our hotels on our way back. From home, she found us a hotel, called and said, y'all stop at this place. And I've never made another hotel reservation for a group.
I would call that a fail.
So I was about to say that was a fail and a win at the same time. So it was the greatest fail of all time.
There's so many debacles because I started out when I was like 16. And so some of you don't even know what you don't know. I made the mistake of involving some parents and letting them travel with us.
It's a great intro.
Okay. I let them travel with us, but not with us.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, and I mean, this is before Karen was popular. This is the prototype of Karen's. All right. And so they're going to go with us to West Virginia, Beckley, West Virginia.
Yep.
And they decide, and it didn't matter what trip. If these 2 people went with us, they either left before we did or after we did. They traveled on their own schedule. They stopped when they wanted. They basically used being a chaperone and having their way paid to vacation. And I drive into this hotel in Beckley, West Virginia with 26 kids on a van. I walk in the door. This lady's in the lobby, and she's smoking out of her ears. Her husband is pacing. And I go to the counter and she goes, you don't have any rooms. Like, what do you mean you don't have any rooms? I've got a reservation. This is before the internet. And I made a phone call and wrote numbers down. I said, this is, she goes, no, what you don't understand is that little princess right there cost you all your rooms. She came in and was so rude and so obnoxious that the girl behind the counter just basically said, I lost your reservations. You don't have them. So we go down the road and find this West Virginia country western bar called the Honey and the Rock. And above it is the Honey and the Rock Motel.
No.
And I rent 2 rooms with my own personal money. I put all the boys in one room, all the girls in one room, and I slept on the balcony between the 2 rooms outside at the Honey and the Rock Motel in West Virginia.
Nice.
That's fantastic. Not really. That would, wow. So did those people ever go on another trip after that?
Oh, they went on many.
Oh, my
They were
goodness.
thorns in my side forever.
So basically what we're saying is don't be those people. If you go on youth trips, don't cost your...
Yeah, that's what I was
trip.
saying. Yeah. Don't be those people.
Don't be those people.
So I guess this counts, but there are not a pair of waiters in a church building that people have that fit a guy like me.
And that don't leak. And that don't leak.
And that don't leak.
Yeah,
They all leak.
So I'm leaving Pine Hill.
We know.
I'm leaving Pine Hill, and the last night I'm there, there's a young lady that wants to be baptized. And so I'm in the baptistry, and I mean, the minute I get in, they're filling up. I mean, I'm up to my knees in water. I might as well not even have them on. And I've got my tie and button-up shirt on underneath. And I mean, I was just rising. Well, she goes back, slips, and I go to catch her, and so the waiter opens up down the front. I mean, it was complete. I might as well just got in there with the clothes I had on. So I don't know if that's the greatest ministry fail, but that's the one right.
So here's the
off
question
my
I
head.
ask. Why and who started baptizing people with what looks like Georgia Championship Wrestling's Russian leg sweep? You look at the Masked Assassins and watch the Russian leg sweep, and that's how we baptize people. What I started doing is having people kneel, put my hand on the back of their head, dip them forward, dip them back up, no muss, no splash, no drownings, nothing goes on. But it's not biblical unless you Russian leg sweep them into the kingdom.
If you ever become a professional wrestler, Lonnie, that's your finisher.
I've seen some guys do some baptisms that were
like
like
sweeping in the kingdom.
So Wes Howell, when he was at Petersville, this was before my time, but they tell the story of him doing a baptism. And then there, when the baptism was over, they would close the curtains as they were walking out. So they close the curtains, and as they get closed, all the people in the auditorium they hear a commotion, and they watch water run over the wall and down the side of the wall and into the pulpit. And they said what happened was he started up the steps, and as he went up the steps, he slipped, threw his hands up in the air, and did a backbuster into the baptistry. And when he hit, the water just went up over the wall and flooded everything.
So Brother Will Ed Warren gets up in chapel one day and says, all my students who are in the work of the preacher class, meet me at the pool this morning and dress out. And so across campus we go, these guys are in the work of the preacher class, and we're in the pool at Harding practicing baptisms. Now, this is when the Ultimate Warrior was popular on wrestling.
I love where this is going already.
You can get under a guy that's smaller than you, and believe it or not, I was strong in college, and I grabbed this skinny kid, and I had him over my head, and I was yelling, the crowd wants it, the crowd wants it, and I bumped him up and stepped forward and let him fall behind me to baptize him.
I need a time machine.
We took a group to the Ocoee. And we're doing the Full River, the Olympic section, all of that, and we had gone every year, and it was like perfectly normal. Like I had done it with Huntingdon. Well, this was with Highland Park, and the service that we went with were awesome because they were the guys that would, like, when they passed the rock, they would jump out, jump on the rock, flip, get back in. Like, they were just wild guys from wherever. And so it had rained 2 weeks before we got there. And so
it was fast.
When we got there, our God service was the only service that didn't pull out of the river that day. And so when we're going through the Olympic section, they said it was 3 times quicker. I think it's normally like at 1,300 cubic feet per second. It was like at over 3,000 cubic feet per second. They said it was just rolling. So first group goes, they're the safety group, and so they go on the corner and don't really hit the rapids, and then they get the ropes for the side. Well, then our next 2 groups, and I'm in the last group. This group gets in, flips, they swim the entire Olympic section. My group, it's me and Blake Holloman with 2 high school girls. That's all in. Well, we get sucked right in, and then we're swimming it. So 3 of our kids end up on the end of a rope, and the rest of us go left, and we're just swimming the whole Olympic section. And so, we all got out, blood everywhere. Everybody scraped up. Blake Holloman still to this day will not get in the river because he believed that he was dead. He was under the raft for like 7 seconds, but he thought he was. We need to talk about your de-escalation skills and your attunement skills. Here's a glass to get over. Here's a straw to suck it up.
Just care for people. He was just under
the one that really scared me was Kaylee Hooper, because Kaylee, first thing, they're like, get in the swimmer's position. Well, I'm going through the Olympic section. Kaylee's like 30 yards in front of me, and she's flipped on her belly facing me, like trying to just yell at me. Well, her leg gets caught, almost snaps her leg in half. She has to get out. Kayra Mann's there. So Kayron's like comforting everybody as they come out,
And you're like, it was just 7 seconds.
Wonderful, but I think we took 18 kids that year. The next year we took 4.
Well, I was talking to the cops and they had some issues with the way SWAT behaved on a certain thing. And I said, well, when you call SWAT should be the incident commander. You got a guy who's a captain or a lieutenant, and he doesn't have tactical experience, but he's still the scene commander. I said, you bring that canine dog out, when you drop that leash, that dog's an incident commander.
Yes, it is.
The river is in control.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're just along for the ride.
On the Helping Healing Humor podcast, we talk about anxiety and stress and its impact on our everyday lives. We know that finances, including planning for retirement, is one of the leading causes of stress. It can be confusing and overwhelming. There are differing opinions on the best approach. It can be hard to know who to trust. For our retirement planning, Whitney and I trust Greg Howell of Howell Wealth Management at Northwestern Mutual. Greg is professional, knowledgeable, and accessible. He looks at the whole picture and thinks outside the box to create ways to help you reach your financial goals. Retirement planning can be especially challenging for ministers who do not have the benefit of a 401k, but Greg's expertise and creativity can get you on the right path and give you confidence for the future. Text him to schedule your free 15-minute consultation today at 931-638-1576. Be sure to tell him Ben and Travis sent you. Remember, that's Greg Howell of Howell Wealth Management at Northwestern Mutual, 931-638-1576. So, Ben, I think you're the only one who hasn't asked a question, so that means you have the Lads to Leaders question of the day.
Lonnie, give me your favorite quote from a song, or anybody can answer that.
I've dealt with my ghost. I've faced all my demons. Learned to live with a past I regret. And then the last part of that quote says, I never dreamed that home would end up where I don't belong.
My favorite song in all of the world is In My Time of Dying by Led Zeppelin. And it is long. It's one of those. It's long.
We're going to be there a while.
But there's a line in it that says, if my wings should fail me, Lord, please meet me with another pair.
It's good stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Love that. Love that line. So most of the song is sang to St. Peter. And then he says that.
Well, I use that quote from Rascal Flatts in a chapter in my youth ministry book about when you decide you got to leave a ministry. Mm-hmm. And it was tough times, and a lot of that book that I wrote was therapy for me. And that one line that it says, you deal with these things, but then you never would dream that home would end up where you don't belong. And you put your blood, sweat, and tears into a place for 14 years, and you feel like they throw you away.
Good stuff.
So mine, I don't know if y'all know the band Need to Breathe. Maybe you do. Yeah. One of their songs, Banks, love this. It's something that I'm not a singer, but I try and sing it to Lindsay every now and then. But it kind of fits what I want to do for people. The chorus says, I want to hold you close, but never hold you back, just like the banks to the river. And if you ever feel like you're not enough, I want to break all your mirrors. I want to be there when the darkness closes in to make the truth a little clearer. I want to hold you close, but never hold you back. I'll be the banks of your river.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've just always thought, like, I was singing that one day and Lindsay was in the car and I was like, that's exactly how I want to be as a husband, but even in life, like, that's what I want to be, as a Christian.
Unless you're under the water for 7 seconds. Try and get over that. That's right. Blake, come on, Blake.
So I got to add one. I've got a picture of Jackie holding Lonnie Beth, and I did a dot drawing out of it. I did the whole thing in stippling, and then I put all the lyrics of the Bob Seger song, It's You, and gave it to her for our 5th anniversary.
That's cool. That's cool. Mine's not so much a singing part of the song, but when I was thinking about that is Toby Mac has this song that it ends with the line, or he's kind of saying it, may your kingdom be what wakes me up and lays me down, or what wakes us up and lays us down. And I was like, I just love the way that hits at the end of the song. And I think about that a lot. If I play that in the beginning of the day, I try to kind of think, hey, that's what needs to be my focus throughout the day. Whatever I'm waking up.
You asked me first, and I keep changing my answer.
Keep going.
Like
Keep
a woman
going.
moving furniture. You know?
Well,
no, put it over here. No, put it over
Well, I
there.
was thinking about now if you got one that's not just
Fear, he is a liar.
That's
that's
a
a
really
That's
good
an
one, too.
entire song right
That's
there.
a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
That was the guy we
that's
saw
good.
the night before we went to West Virginia.
I mean, like my
Exactly.
favorite line in a song that has not like inspirational line takes me back to high school days when I was playing in the band, and it's Seeger's line where he says, as I lie awake in bed with the echoes of the amplifier ringing in my head.
Yeah.
And like that one, just because I can remember laying awake at night, in high school and college when we were playing in a band, and just your ears ringing all night, and just thinking about the show and thinking about everything. And that's always been one of my favorite lines because I feel that.
So you guys made me think of two more. One's really easy. So Lonnie, what's it like being the Winter Soldier?
It's cool.
Sweet, awesome. You have to show the folks at home. And then just carry on the music theme. If you could have a concert with any performer from past, present, alive, whatever, you can give me up to 3. You can build the whole show if you want.
Ooh.
I think I answered mine with my lyric. I'm definitely going to go probably Led Zeppelin closing out. And it can be any genre. It doesn't have to make any sense. It
Just
doesn't
throw
have to
them all
be,
together.
it can be whoever you want to go. But yeah, Led Zeppelin's going to close mine. And I've seen Metallica twice. They were great. But Toby Mac puts on a great show. I've enjoyed Toby Mac, Crowder, Lauren Daigle. Those would probably, Lauren Daigle wouldn't be really too far off the Zeppelin. I'd love to see her even perform some of their songs. That would be awesome. By the way, Lauren Daigle has a ton of YouTube videos where she covers all kinds of music. And it's like, you just don't want her to do it because it's kind of one of those deals like Whitney Houston covering I Will Always Love You. Like Dolly Parton's amazing, but man, Whitney tore that up. But anyways.
So random. Lonnie Best getting married. I have nothing to do. I've already made pinwheels and Oreo balls. And so her sister-in-law to be wants to go climbing. So Troy drives over to Georgia and we go to Lost Wall right outside Fort Oglethorpe. And Kathleen goes and one of her friends from high school, this young man who's like a world champion wakeboard rider, he's dating Lauren Daigle. And so I have this weird non-connection with Lauren Daigle, but I know her boyfriend, if that counts for anything, which is random.
That's sweet.
That is
That makes it even more cool, Lonnie Jones. How can you do that?
So I would this would change every day, probably, if I had the chance. But
I know Viola's at the top of that list.
it's right at the top. I've heard Viola, though. I can't. And these would be probably more based on people I have not heard, but would love to hear. And of course, some of them would involve bringing people back. And I could probably talk about a bunch, but I've heard Garth Brooks puts on one of the best shows.
Oh yeah,
ever.
yeah.
So I'd probably want to hear Garth Brooks. I also heard Michael Jackson's shows were amazing. So I'd probably throw Garth Brooks, Michael Jackson, and Aerosmith. Like those three,
Wow.
that'd be quite the show, but that would be a fun one. And I could probably name
Think about the
6
days
more
when you
people.
could go to one show in a high school gymnasium and see
And see
Elvis
all-
Presley,
oh,
Johnny Cash.
And if I could bring those
Lewis.
guys, I'd do those. I'd go back and see those.
Pay a nickel and
This is going to shock the room. Bob Seger,
I knew that one's coming.
Queen,
Yes.
and AC/DC.
hey, that's a great
I'd
show.
go with those
Let's
two.
just put a festival together.
Let's just we're putting them all together.
All right, Will.
What you got?
Listen, I was gonna say the Eagles.
Oh, the Eagles. Yeah.
How do we not do that?
Yeah, everybody else is a cover band for the Eagles.
the
We do
Eagles,
those
that's
three,
Yeah.
or the opening act, and then the Eagles are the headliner. So everybody gets the Eagles. Your 3 openers.
Man, Rascal Flatts was unbelievable in concert.
Travis, that's who you want to go see, isn't it?
Go ahead.
But my 3 were going to be the Eagles, Aerosmith, and AC/DC.
Yeah,
There you go.
That's the ones I was going to say.
Very
I would
nice.
throw Need to Breathe in there. If you've never heard Little Big Town in concert, unbelievable as well.
I've not heard very many people in concert.
I've not been to very many concerts.
I've played more concerts.
I'm going
than
to
I've
scratch
been to
off a bucket list when Diamond Rio comes to Albertville, Alabama. in June, and
Did you not hear them?
fired
at
up?
3?
No,
See, I heard them at
that was
3,
a year
so-
before I had a football game that
That's
night.
right.
You were already up there, so I'm
Diamond
excited
Rio.
about
I
Diamond
have
Rio.
heard
I'm going to see Crowder the week before.
Nice.
He's great. Well, Lonnie, we're always thankful when you jump
Man,
on.
this is so cool.
If you guys are not listening to Lonnie Jones podcast, you may be one of only a few in America. Right now, as soon as this podcast ends, go subscribe to
Keeping Up with Jones.
The Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.
and subscribe, and it's going to hit your stuff just about the same time ours. I always tell people we're like the Saturday morning cartoons, but we're the Tuesday morning podcast. So,
And you just broke like what?
I just broke 50,000 listeners.
50,000 listens. That's
awesome.
awesome.
Which is, I don't know in podcast world what that is, but to me, that's a big number.
It's a good
and
number.
that's a really good number.
Large
There are a lot of people who would give a lot for that number.
They
So,
give their right arm
yeah,
for that number.
I kept my right arm. It's just been improved. How about that?
it's bionic now. But we do appreciate everybody listening. Be sure, if you're not listening, like I said, to Keeping Up with Jones, go do it now because it is incredible.
Thanks, Travis. Love you guys. Thank you guys for letting me be on tonight.
Transform is a word that describes what women do. We transform from sisters to best friends, from girlfriends to wives, from wives to mothers, mothers to grandmothers. Women are constantly evolving into a new role, a beautiful, challenging role. Much like our titles, our spiritual lives transform as well. While always a student of the word, some are called to be teachers, mentors, servants, and disciples. Transform Ladies Conference aims to bless every phase of your Christian walk. Come join us October 14th through 16 in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for a delightful weekend full of truth, God's love, Christian fellowship, and fun. www.tlcladies.org. Contact JJ Davenport. info@tlcladies.org.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.